The Brothers Karamazov, Book 4, Chapter 6. Alyosha is on his way with 200 rubles in an envelope of Katerina's money to take to the captain that Dmitri had beat up at a bar. He had dragged him out by his wisp of toe, by his chin hair, as we'll see in this chapter and the next. So Alyosha arrives at the cottage, and already the contrast between this and the last chapter, as if the titles of the chapter titles weren't enough, already the contrast and the description between this and the last two chapters is confirmed. So in the last two chapters, the layout of Madame Holokov's house and its beauty and its expense and its her third house is contrasted with this cottage. Also, the obvious contrast, the chapter titles. There was the laceration in the drawing room in the previous chapter, and now this is a laceration in the cottage. And so Alyosha goes to this poor house, this cottage, and he knocks, and rather than having a maid or a servant or someone paid to answer the door, nobody answers the door. All he hears is quiet and then moaning and groaning. And as he is finally greeted, he sees a woman, a hardworking, stressed out woman, and she has some insight and some character about her. And so already start contrasting the household we just left versus the household we're going to. So what household did we just leave? The dramatic, over-the-top Madame Holokov, the immature, giggly, sometimes disabled Lise, and the selfish, pseudo-Christian, not honest with herself, Katerina. So there's a rich superficiality, a falseness, and now Alyosha leaves that with 200 rubles, and now he's going to poverty, and the first lady he meets is a woman of substance or character. As he enters the house, he sees a disabled young girl, and another girl is spoken of as she is off at school and she's fighting for women's rights. And so Dostoevsky is making this clear-cut distinction between this disabled girl and Lise, who has written this letter to Alyosha. This disabled girl is full of intellect and courage and hardworking, whereas Lise is immature and giggly. And so I think that the whole point of the chapter is really to set up this contrast between the Holokov house and the house of this captain. So finally, Alyosha makes his way to the intended recipient. He's not sure how he's to handle this money. He doesn't want to insult this captain, but yet he wants to do what he has promised Katerina he will do, which is to deliver this money, thus atoning for the sins of his brother Dmitri. Alyosha meets the father and begins to try to stumble and mumble through his words and try to explain who it is that he is. He uses his last name, hoping that this captain, this former disgraced captain, will understand that he is Dmitri's brother. The captain can't understand why Alyosha, a man of the cloth, would come to visit such a humble, poor cottage with all these broken people in it, and he begins to sort of guess at the reason and make the connections and try to hold on to his pride and act like his interaction with Dmitri was not that big of a deal in order to keep up his manly reputation with his wife and disabled daughter. From behind a curtain, a voice peeps in and sort of saves Alyosha for a second, and the voice says, "Dad, he's here about me. He's here to complain about me." And here now, the connection between some previous chapters all come together, because the boy that threw the rock at the 6 people in Alyosha, now we understand why he did it. Because he knows that Alyosha is a Karamazov, and he knows that Alyosha's brother Dmitri is the one that beat up his dad, and not just beat him up, but humiliated by his wisp of tow, by grabbing him by his facial hair and pulling him out. And so all the schoolboys saw that, and now this little boy's dad is a joke, and so that's why he lashed out at Alyosha and the boys, is because of who Alyosha was. So the first important point of this chapter is the contrast between rich superficiality, a sort of, I think here's the main point, the selfishness of Holikov, Lise, and Katerina creates its own problems. It creates its own suffering. The laceration in the drawing room, the deep cut of the drawing room, is self-inflicted. Holikov, Lise, and Katerina, all of their lacerations, all of their problems are self-inflicted. It's because they're self-absorbed, superficial, really dishonest with themselves type of people. Therefore, their lacerations are self-inflicted. Here at the cottage, their lacerations are, they are the victims of an unjust society, of a fallen world. And so here is this captain trying to retain his dignity in front of his family, trying to retain his manhood, and here is the boy trying to explain his actions. So I think the second important point to get out of this chapter is that Alyosha, embodying the philosophy of Zosima, proves to be correct. The chapter where he intervened in the disagreement between the school children and his finger is bitten, is originally the original laceration in this book. He says to the young boy, "Surely you wouldn't have bit me unless you had some reason to." So we had seen in the previous chapter, Fyodor blaming Ivan and attributing the illest possible motives to all Ivan's behavior. And then in that chapter, Alyosha attributing a reasonable, sensible behaviors to this little boy. And this chapter proves out how right he was about that. The boy did have a reason after all. He wasn't just this crazy ball of anger. He had a reason to lash out at Alyosha. Alyosha could have never known the reason, but the honest, loving worldview allowed him to have the humility to say, even though I can't see the reason why this strange young boy would bite my finger, surely he does have a reason, and this chapter shows that he does indeed have a reason. And so this chapter ends with Alyosha and the captain sort of beating around the bush, with Alyosha not able to fully express what he's doing at this cottage and what purpose this mission serves, what purpose this visit serves.